The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason, along with Sue 𝐊𝐚𝐫𝐲. This is the show where we talk about everything happening in the world of pop culture. Great guest today, our returning champion actress, Katy O'Brian, is going to be here. We talked to her when her movie Love Lies Bleeding came out earlier this year. Now she's in Twisters, which is a worldwide box office smash. And, of course, we have the same personal trainer, Sue.
Yes, I know.
Yes. By the way, I'm sore every day, whether I work out or not. Like when I work out, I'm super sore. Like I did these new core exercises yesterday where you hold the weight like this and you go like this. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So that's like crunches, kind of?
Yeah, like crunches, but standing crunches where you're pulling weight down. Oh, yeah, it's hardcore. And today I'm super sore.
Do you ever do kettlebells?
Oh, yeah, do kettlebells, absolutely. Now, when was the last time you were in a weight room, Sue? When's the last time you threw around some weight?
You know, I do some free weights at home.
Do you? What exercises?
Very important. I swim, I bike, and I run. That's my exercises.
And the free weights don't have anything to do with?
Oh, well, the free weights are good. I mean, it's just, you know, when a woman gets to a certain age, you know, osteoporosis is like a big deal.
Is that really? Do you have osteoporosis?
Yeah, every woman at my age either has, it's called osteopenia, which is like not as bad as osteoporosis.
Oh,
but
God.
Every woman has some form of it.
Had no idea.
After, you know, it probably starts in your 50s.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and there you are doing triathlons with osteoporosis. There should be a different division. The osteoporosis division would be great. Man. You could win that.
OP.
Yes.
But my doctor said that it's very important to do free weights because you want to strengthen your muscles, you know?
Yes. So. Good. So we never talked before we start the show. And I asked you how you were doing right before we started. And you're like, I'll tell you on the air. I'll tell you when the record button is hit. So what is going on?
Well, speaking of exercise, I'm doing another triathlon in November.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
really?
In Newport.
Wow. So you are hooked.
Well, the group that I'm training with, the guy who owns the triathlon store, was saying, we're not going to do it until next year. We'll do the first one that I did in Bayshore in Long Beach. And I went there last night for a run, and he said, we're doing one in Newport. And I was like, yes, because we're all just like, we don't want to wait until March to do another one. I mean, it's just too far away. So what I hear is the swim is the easiest. It's only 400 meters, which is like...
Oh, that's short. That's like 4 laps of a pool.
Well, not really, but it's...
No, actually, 400 is 8 laps of a pool.
Yeah. So that's that. So the first one I did was 500 meters, so that's great.
Yeah.
But I heard that the bike is really hard because there is a very steep hill.
Oh.
So we're going to go there to train one day just so we can not be surprised when we get to the race.
Right.
He said because, you know, you don't want to start like figuring out, oh no, what gear do I go into, you know?
Yeah.
So that's, you know, and that's my now the bike riding is like the least favorite when it's like that. I like just flat road.
Sure. Well, of course, the hills are a bitch, I'm sure.
Exactly.
So Sue, let me see. Before we get to Katy here, you this baby reindeer story just continues to unfold, and if you've not been following it, there's a court case. Richard Gadd, who's the creator and star of Baby Reindeer, which was one of the big must-watch TV shows of this last year. And Martha is the stalker in that show, played brilliantly by Jessica Gunning, but apparently was based on a woman named Fiona Harvey, who was the real-life stalker who pursued Richard Gadd, and now she is suing. What is the latest on this case, Sue?
So Netflix conceded that the show's real-life Martha was not convicted of stalking. That's the big case, that that Fiona was defamed.
Okay.
You know, there was a court order. So at the top of the series, they say that it is a true story. They make that a very specific point.
Mm-hmm.
So Richard Gadd came out and said that I never intended the series to identify any real person as Martha, including Harvey.
Yeah.
He said, like all the characters in the series, Martha is a fictional character with a fictional personality traits that are different than Harvey's. And it's like, how do you claim that that it's a true story and then say, well, she was a fictional character? She was not a fictional character. It was based on this woman.
Okay, so let me ask you, though.
If this woman didn't exist, he does not have a show.
Okay, so what is the exact language? Is it based on a true story, or this is a true story?
This is a true story.
Okay.
You see, they get away with making changes when it's inspired by a true story or based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
They flat out said, this is a true story. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, if her case, I think it leans more towards Fiona Harvey right now.
See, I think it leans the other way.
Why?
Because she's the one that self-identified. She's the one that came out and said, hey, that's me. She's the one that brought all this on. There was nobody knew that it was Fiona Harvey until she went on like the Piers Morgan show and said, wait a minute, I'm that woman. Why did she do that if she wanted her privacy and she didn't want to be, quote unquote, why would she ever come out and say, hey, I'm Martha?
Look, you know, is she coming out obviously because she wants money, or is she coming out because if this is true to her character, the character that she's portrayed as, she feels like she was wrong. She feels like, wow, you're telling this story about me, and that didn't happen to me. So, you know, it remains to be seen.
It didn't happen to her because she got a restraining order filed against her instead of convicted of stalking. It seems like a really fine line. And Richard Gadd has got thousands of text messages and emails and all this stuff of this woman harassing him. She is not a victim here. She is a perpetrator.
True. But I mean, in when it comes to the law, I mean, she was defamed because a court order is very different than being convicted and her going to jail. You know, then you have a record. Then it just says all these things that aren't true.
There was a restraining order. Here's what I don't. So she's continuing to harass and stalk this guy, Richard Gadd, by self-identifying herself, say, hey, wait a minute, I'm the crazy woman from Baby Reindeer, and then continuing to pursue this. Is this not just a continuation of her stalking of this guy, Richard Gadd? It just keeps going.
Well, you know, he brought it to the screen. And he brought it to the stage.
I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Netflix. I don't like her. She needs help. She needs serious help.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from just a legal standpoint more than whose side I'm on. I mean, I just think that I think she kind of has a case. But, you know, I was thinking like, you know, somebody does a story and they say that this is a true story and they take everything about your personal life where you know and you know that they know you, you
Yeah.
know, and it's about you.
Is
I
it a
mean,
bad story? Is
well,
it like her, a bad story?
it could be bad. It could be anything, you
Because if
know?
it was bad, the last thing I would do is come out and say, hey, everybody, that's me. That really bad character, that was me. I'm going to go on Piers Morgan and talk. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
like
I
her.
mean, yeah. I mean, there's something dirty about it on her side for sure. But I'm just wondering where it's going to go now. Now that Netflix conceded the fact that it was not a true story.
Yeah, she is seeking 120 million euros in this case.
Yeah, I get it. I think the rub for me too is that Gad said, you know, she was a fictional character, and it's like she wasn't a fictional character.
Yeah, no, I mean,
she wasn't. So he shouldn't have said that.
no,
That's total bullshit. He has no story.
He should have said the stalker, this crazy woman, pursued me forever. Here are my text messages that I got from her. Here are my tweets that I got from her. Here are my emails that I got from her. Look at this. And I'd release those to the public and say, look, this is not a victim. She's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, you know, you can't have it both ways. You can't say it's a true story and then say that this wasn't her. You know, she was fictional. It kind of makes it sound like he created this. Well, if you created this, then it's not true. Then it makes me think that, was it true?
Yeah.
So
I get it.
That's the rub.
Yeah, that is the rub. And by the way, libel laws in the UK are very different than here. They're much looser libel laws. So she's much more likely to get something for this in the UK than she would be here in the States. So they announced this great Broadway cast for a revival of Glengarry Glen Ross. Wow. It's such a great show to start with. But the way they've cast this looks fascinating.
2 comedians.
Yeah. Bill Burr is in it.
Bill Burr and Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about a time when comedians really weren't used in especially serious acting roles. And I was thinking, I remember Kelly's Heroes. Remember that movie? It was a war picture, and Don Rickles was in it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, God, you know, I mean, that's crazy that Don Rickles, you would never expect him to be in.
He was great in Casino. Did you ever, I mean, in
he was
Casino,
great.
he was
great. But Kelly's Heroes was an old movie. I mean, it was probably in the 70s, I think. Anyway, and now so many comedians, like, you know, I was thinking back when I, you know, first started doing stand-up, the idea of just being on television, you know, especially like being on the Tonight Show or being on a talk show as a comedian, unbelievable. I mean, that was like the big goal. And then maybe getting a guest starring role on some TV series, and then all of a sudden comedians are getting their own series based on their lives. Right. And now Broadway. I mean, I can't imagine the thrill, you know, for Bill Burr, who, I mean, he's carved out a really nice acting career of late. Oh, yeah. You know? But to be on Broadway, starting as a stand-up comedian in a David Mamet play, oh my God. That's got to be. I love
the casting of Odenkirk, who is playing, if you remember that show, he's playing Shelley Levine, which was the Jack Lemmon role. And he's like this, worn down, lost hope kind of guy. I can see Odenkirk playing this and playing it really well. What I didn't get from the story, and I was looking at a story from Deadline, I don't know if they've got somebody to play the role that the guy comes in and he's like A, B, C, always, A, always, B, B, C,
is
closing,
that the Alec
always
Baldwin?
be closing.
Is that the Alec Baldwin?
Exactly.
Baldwin
Now, I didn't see anybody cast in that role.
Yeah.
But that's a great role.
You know who also would have been great in the Shelley Levine role is Ray Romano.
He would be.
Because we were talking about Fly Me to the Moon, and he always, not always, but he does have a penchant for playing that kind of character where he kind of like slumps along and he just feels, he's like this loser.
Got the weight of the
type.
world on his shoulders.
Yeah, yeah.
We saw him do that in Fly Me to the Moon. He was great. Now, I've never asked you this, but you were a well-known comic in the 80s, right?
Yes. 80s and 90s a bit.
And 90s. Now, when they started handing out sitcoms to comedians, did anybody ever say, hey, what about the world of Sue 𝐊𝐚𝐫𝐲? Was that ever a possibility for you?
No, because my act didn't really dictate that. I mean, I talked some stuff about my family, but I didn't have that chest of wealth of story.
Mm-hmm.
You could look at someone like Ray Romano and it's like, oh God, of course they're going to have a show about him. Ellen,
right.
Yeah, of course. I didn't have an act like that. So no, I was never approached to develop a show around me.
Got it. Hey, I wanted to mention this, and again, Katy's coming up. There is a brand new. It was actually put to the side for a couple years, and now it's back. A brand new Madonna biopic. It is written and directed by Madonna, and it stars, tell me how you feel about this, Julia Garner from Ozark.
I love it.
Yeah, I can see a resemblance between young Madonna and young Julia Garner.
Look, there's nothing Julia Garner can't do.
Yeah, she was amazing on that show.
Wow. That's great. I love it.
It's a good piece of casting. Yeah, the movie's going to be called Who's That Girl? Madonna is attached to write and direct, and the other actress that was very, very close was Florence Pugh, apparently, but Julia Garner got the nod. Florence Pugh is great also.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for that and see where that goes. We were talking the other day. I don't know of anybody that hasn't gotten a music bio yet. Can you think of anybody that hasn't gotten one? Like I was thinking Janis Joplin, but The Rose starring Bette Midler was loosely based on Janis Joplin, right?
Right. What, Jimi Hendrix?
Has there been a Jimi Hendrix bio? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
I said, like a warts and all Michael Jackson would be a good bio.
Absolutely.
That's
kind of shocking that there hasn't been one.
I went to see the Michael Jackson musical at the Pantages. I was blown away by how good that show is, but there was no mention of, what went on at Neverland Ranch, whatever that was, with kids and whatnot. So there was no mention of it. And I was weird because everybody brought their kids to see this show. So it's almost like that part of his history gets pushed aside by a lot of people. Like you still hear Michael Jackson music on the radio. I heard Billie Jean on the radio last week. So there's this weird compartmentalization that goes on with whatever went on at Neverland Ranch and the rest of his career.
Well, I'm wondering to get the rights to do his story, whether his family had something to do with that.
I mean, couldn't you do that with life? You don't really need the life rights for Michael Jackson, do you?
Well, as far as some of the content, like you said, that they didn't include that material, that was,
Yeah, which I'm
dark.
I'm not up to date on. I haven't read a bunch about that, so I don't know exactly.
Right.
But a lot of people say that's the way things went down back then. But yeah, that's one that I think would be a natural. The other one is Prince.
Yeah.
A biopic about Prince would be great, but how tough to cast him. I actually think Bruno Mars could play Prince.
I was just going to say that. He's perfect.
Yeah.
Stature,
he's like the
everything.
Closest thing. Yeah, stature. Exactly. One last thing I wanted to mention is there's a brand new movie directed by Jason Reitman called Saturday Night. Have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so there's a trailer out now. The movie comes out October 11th. It looks like it's about the very first episode of Saturday Night Live told in kind of like real time. And Gabriel LaBelle, who played young Steven Spielberg, it was young Steven Spielberg in The Fabelmans, He's playing Lorne Michaels, and there's a lot in the trailer. It's like NBC wants you to fail. People want you to fail. And it's all about putting that cast together. The one thing that jumped out at me from the trailer, and you should go look at it if you haven't seen it, is that the guy that plays Chevy Chase is like a total ringer. Like that just looks exactly like Chevy Chase. And he has a big pratfall in the trailer, which you would expect from Chevy Chase. But that's a movie I'm really excited about. I'm just a huge Saturday Night Live fan. Have you ever been to SNL?
Yeah, I went once.
Yeah, I also went once. Who was the host?
I don't even remember.
I saw Halsey as the musical guest and the host, and she was unbelievable. I'm always impressed when you can be the musical guest and the host.
Yeah, it was when Colin Quinn was on the show. I got tickets through Colin.
Yeah, it must not have been a memorable host.
I tell you the truth, I really don't remember. So long ago. It was like over 20 years ago.
John Ireland was there to see Donald Trump as the host of Saturday Night Live in 2015. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
What I mean, I saw it, but what was his reaction to it?
That it was funny. Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. No, I thought he was fine.
Yeah. Last thing here. So we got a message on a comment on one of our podcasts on YouTube, and it is from Cold Brew Binkin. Do you know Cold Brew Binkin?
No.
Yeah, it's just somebody that watches the show, listens to this show. It's okay. It's their handle. So it says, thanks to Sue mentioning it, now checking out Slow Horses, hoping I like it because hypothetically I would have 4 juicy seasons of catch-up viewing to do, and meanwhile possibly improve my English. So I'm not sure where they are, but they're working on English. Having trouble seeing how it could win an Emmy, as it seems a British show, and actually now wondering if any foreign series has ever won an Emmy. It also appears to be produced by Will Smith. So, actually, I think the most recent foreign show to win was The Crown.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I don't think it's the same Will Smith.
No, it is a comedian. It's a British comedian named Will Smith. It is not the guy who slapped Chris Rock.
Right. Okay.
Now, I don't think Slow Horses is going to win, but again, was Game of Thrones an international, or was that a foreign show? It wasn't shot here?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what a foreign show necessarily is anymore, because these are all multinational productions.
And so many production companies here have their international partner.
Yes, correct.
So there, if it's in conjunction with the American production company.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Cold Brew Binkin, for watching and for commenting. By the way, you can always comment on our YouTube posts. We're on the Culture Pop Podcast YouTube channel. You can watch every show. On top of that, if you're listening on Apple or on Spotify, please subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We'll always try to respond if you leave a comment, a message, something like that on YouTube or on Apple, Spotify. All right, let's do this thing. Our guest today began her career as a martial artist and a police officer. She moved to L.A. in pursuit of an acting career, landed roles on The Walking Dead, *Halt and Catch Fire*, The Mandalorian, and Westworld. Earlier this year, she had her breakthrough role in the movie Love Lies Bleeding, and now she is back to talk about her role in the worldwide box office smash Twisters. Katy O'Brian is here. Katy, thanks very much for coming back to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Loving it. Every day is awesome. Back in the UK, living the dream.
Nice. Yeah, you have, what a year for you, huh? You've got Love Lies Bleeding. You got Twisters out now. You're working on the Mission Impossible. I mean, you're turning into a movie star. Can you feel that?
No, but that's okay. I'm very happy. Like, there's like this level that I think you reach where you can't walk around outside and enjoy like just living. And I'm really good, like not being there.
Yeah.
Right. This kind of like a pissing contest between you and Glenn Powell, because he's like in everything.
He's in everything, and like, bless him. I mean, he's working so hard. Like every time that I hear that he's booked something else, I'm actually worried about him. I'm like, Glenn, my babe, you gotta like, like take a vacation. I hope you're breathing and taking your moments. But yeah, he's working it, and yeah, super proud of him, and he deserves it. He's like, his charisma pops on the screen, and I love that. So.
Oh yeah, it absolutely does.
I want to ask you, since we're on the subject, what's the perfect amount of downtime in between films?
I think that kind of depends on what's going on in your life, like, I'm still waiting to have my honeymoon. So I think like a good 2 weeks for that would be great. Or, eventually we're going to have kids. So if we're having kids, like what, 6 weeks, 2 months, I don't know. It's just, it really depends on what's going on. Like right now I've finished 2 projects, and I have 2 more in the works right now. So just go. So that, that kind of, I got sick. It wears you down. Just traveling all over the place. But I also enjoy, working, and feel blessed to be able to continue working, especially in this weird time in the industry where, we've been going on strikes, and people are trying to figure out how to make streaming profitable and how to get people back to theaters and, all of these things. So I'm feeling very fortunate to even be working at all. So,
Sue, I don't know if you know this, but Katy and I have the same personal trainer.
I know
Trainer
all
to the stars,
about it, Steve. You talk
Trainer
about
to
it.
the stars, Steve Zim. And he also trains me. And Katy, I have made progress since the last time we talked. I feel good about it.
I believe, like, I really do believe I was promised the last time that in our next conversation we would do it topless, like you would do it topless. I don't know. That
I don't think I'm up to that, but it's been 6 months. This is like the biggest commitment I've ever made to consistently do resistance training, and it's made a gigantic difference in my life.
Yeah, I bet. Even your cardio, probably, you just feel like so much better all around. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, what's your training like? You're in the UK. What's your training like these days?
I have been taking it easy right now because I had a sinus infection into a cold, and like I said, I was traveling all over. I mean, my air miles are insane right now, but I thought, I need to rest for a second. Like my body is telling me to slow down, so I've been resting, but now I'm getting back into it, and I think I'm gonna slip back into what I was doing for Ant-Man, which was kind of a fun variation of Steve usually has me do like almost a traditional bodybuilding routine, but what I did for Ant-Man was like is like supersetting almost lower body and upper body. So you do like quads and shoulders, for instance, and the second you're done with your quad set, you go straight into shoulders, and it sends your blood from your legs back up high and just keeps your heart like kind of confused, I guess. And the amount of calories that you burn in a short period of time is just outrageous. So I like doing that when I'm doing strength training because it kind of lets me do it in less than 2 hours. Because strength training, you're going to need a long gap between sets and things like that. So it just lets me train a different way and keep things moving and feel less bored. But yeah.
So when you're away from home, do you seek out a trainer? Like you're in England now. Do you seek out a trainer at a gym, or do you just do stuff by yourself?
I just do stuff by myself. I was a personal trainer and was certified, so I at least have a general knowledge of what's going on. And nutrition as well. I was certified in nutrition, sports nutrition. So I have a good idea of what I need to do. If there are times where I'm kind of feeling like I've hit a plateau, or I want to vary up my diet or try to modify something, I can always call Steve, which is great. And yeah, I just, I don't know who to trust out here too is the other thing, it's like, it's a lot of trial and error and word of mouth. And, and the other thing too, is the schedule, your shooting schedules are always chaotic. So you never know, I don't want to keep canceling on somebody.
Well, the next time you come on the show, I will do the show with my shirt off, or I'll at least give you. I'm not ready yet.
We'll
Although I am feeling pretty yoked.
Yeah, we'll do it at the gym. It'll be fun.
Okay, do it at the gym. Exactly. So I want to talk about Twisters, which, when I was a kid growing up in Toledo, Ohio, we had this siren at the rec center, which was in our neighborhood, that would go off if there was a tornado warning. And we had tornado drills at school. We would get under our desk and we put a book on our head, like that was going to help. You grew up in Indiana, which is, I think, sort of tornado country, right? Did you ever have that experience?
It was every week we had just a test siren go off. So, I think it was like every Friday, kind of around the afternoon. And it sounds like if you ever watch or play Silent Hill. And so when I first played the game, I was like, tornado siren. And then it felt different to me. But it's like, the siren goes off, and it's also the like the canary, when they send a canary into caves and they die or whatever, it's like a siren that it's like, this is a no-go. So it's this big alert, and it's kind of like a weird thing now, because not only do I associate it with tornadoes, but also just growing up in Indiana, but I associate it with the world turning into purgatory or whatever Silent Hill is. Since too many things for the same noise. But yeah, we definitely had that. The drills. I was fortunate enough to have a basement, so when there was a tornado, we just pop down there and wake up in the morning and clean up.
What's Silent Hill?
Silent Hill, it started as a video game, and it's definitely a horror video game. And then I think they did like a couple movies. But yeah, it's basically like you wind up in this weird realm, this weird land called Silent Hill, and a lot of strange things happen there, and you kind of get trapped there. And it's like this siren goes off, and suddenly it's like hell comes to earth, and you have to avoid all of these demons, monsters, creatures, and it's a really creepy game. I used to make my brother would play it, and I'd watch in the corner, like. So go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say pivot here to Twisters.
Yep.
We were talking about sirens and tornadoes and all that stuff. So Lee Isaac Chung is your director on Twisters, which is so interesting because he directed you, I think, in an episode of The Mandalorian. Is that right?
Yeah, he directed the long one.
Is that how he found you for this role? Like, was that connection important?
Yeah. It's Mandalorian has been very, very helpful, and that's how Peyton Reed knew who I was for Ant-Man. And that's how Isaac knew who I was for Twisters. And we worked so closely, and I just absolutely adore him. We love working together. And he had recommended me for Twisters for a long time. And for whatever reason, it took forever for them to approve me for it. So by the time I was given the call saying, hey, like, we want you to come in for it, it was basically like 2 hours to read the script and say yes or no. So I basically just wanted to work with Isaac. But yeah, I had 2 hours to agree or disagree to do the project. And then the next day I was in Oklahoma, which was kind of nuts. And I thought it would be just a couple weeks, but it was the whole shoot.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It is, and it's hard because it's like you don't get to plan very well,
Yeah. When all of a sudden they parachute you into Oklahoma. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm so curious because there's so many visual effects, and it's just incredible. As an actor, how do you act in that, and what are you reacting to?
It's so hard when you're in the car, like, because we do a lot of those. We're chasing in the cars, and Isaac did want it to be on location. He wanted everything as much as it could be practical to be practical. He loved the backdrops, the scenery, whatever. And then I think he wanted, he got into the editing room and was like, well, now I have to like take the grass out and CGI wind into it. So it's like, it's one of those things that, practical didn't necessarily always work out. But when we're in the car, it really is like, especially when we're shooting multiple tornadoes at once, or we don't know which tornado we're on, we have to agree, okay, it's here and it's going this way. And they literally have walkie-talkies telling us okay, now you're just turning a little more right, So you're just listening and getting cues as to where the tornado is going. and then we have to agree how big and scary it is. And you just kind of like hope that we're all on the same page, and at the end they don't make it small and pathetic or like massive and we're like doing a small reaction. There's a lot of trust in the process, I think, for it.
Wow. And does it feel like, does it take you out a little bit?
Yeah, for me it does. It's a challenge of also just being able to communicate when, everybody's in a different truck, and like the radios, you can only get so much. So it is a little bit tricky. And you just kind of hope that you do get revved up and you do start like getting excited and hyper about it. But you're just hoping that your reaction is like the one that they need for that shot. And you're not, our truck isn't going one way, and then, I don't get to see how, let's say, Daisy and Glenn or Daisy and Glenn are doing, their reactions. I've thought I was switching the character names for a second. And so like you hope that your reaction also matches kind of theirs too. So it is kind of just like you have to trust the director a lot to make sure that, he really is or she is paying attention and knows exactly what they want in the final cut, which is so helpful.
Yeah. Just that it feels like maybe like a command center was talking to you, instead of like producers or the director, is that accurate in some ways?
It's either the director or the assistant director, but they have the walkie and they're in a totally separate vehicle and they're watching on the monitors, and they're looking at certain things, and you have to know what questions to ask too. You can't just sit there and not think about your part at all. You really do need to know, hey, I want to make sure that we're both looking at the same
right.
The same thing, the same size. Do you have a picture reference for us? Do you have whatever? Okay, this is exploding. That's great to know. We need to know when it's exploding so that they remember to give you all the cues, and because they've got 10,000 things to think about as well. But when we're outside and they've got the giant wind machines blasting at you, and there is stuff flying in your face and your eyes, you're having to scream to like say anything and communicate. That feels a lot more realistic, and it's a little bit easier to get in the scene in the moment, and you can see everybody. That everybody's running around and at the same level. So that's so much easier for me, at least.
So you met real storm chasers, right? The kind of people that drive towards the tornado as opposed to hunkering down. What are those people like? I mean, they seem a little bit crazy. Do you understand the appeal of being a storm chaser?
Yeah, and a lot of them are weather nerds. They just some of them work for the weather center, and a lot of their goal is to track, understand tornadoes, help better predict tornadoes. There's a massive scientific element to it, where a lot of people who are in it for that sort of thing are doing it, and those are a lot of the people that we talk to. So they're people that work with or in tandem with whether either like the stations or the meteorology school, or they're doing it for some kind of scientific purpose. So that was really cool. It was cool to see how they've got this incredible technology that they use to track it. They can even go back and do it analog on hand. So it was cool to see the different ways of tracking. And you have people that are they do it because they want to kind of be eyes and ears for people around them. Let kind of what we were doing in the movie, let towns know ahead of time, like a tornado is coming. Give updated and accurate information on when and where tornadoes are going. So that's a lot of the people that we spoke to. I got to talk to a group of storm chasers, girls who chased. They want to increase the interest of women in storm chasing. Tend to be more also responsible and educate people on the dangers of it as well. So people aren't just going out and thinking they can do it and not knowing where the tornado is going to go and finding themselves in, what we call the suck zone. And there's all this lingo that we learned. And one of them was like, I can't remember what it's called, but it was it's this basically this invisible line of wind that you just don't see, and then when you're in it, you're gone. It's like not a good spot. A lot of people a few years back died because they got into storm chasing, didn't know about this phenomenon that happens, and they just were in the wrong place.
But aren't there people that are just like Yahoo adrenaline junkie? Like I'm gonna. Is that crowd out there too?
Sure. Yeah. There's always going to be that. And I think Tyler and his group were based off somebody that has like a tank. He like drives tanks into the tornadoes, fireworks and stuff. So there are people that actually do that. Yeah.
Sounds like Mad Max. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really wild. That's a no for me. I'm all about watching them from afar, like from a safe distance. I think that's really cool. And it's cool to see what Mother Nature can do. But I don't need to be shooting fireworks into one. I'm good.
So I read that some of the cast members attended a weather boot camp. What was that about?
I didn't get to go to that, but that was at the meteorology center, and they just gave them the rundown on, this is all the equipment that we use to track tornadoes, and this is how we do it. And they gave them some fun lingo. There's something called, it's like BSC or something. That they use like for, over the radio, whatever, we got a BSC over here. And it might not be the exact word, but it is actually big, scary cloud. And that's like, so it's like they abbreviate things that are actually like when it comes out, it's kind of a funny term. So they just learned a bunch of lingo. They got to talk to storm chasers. They got to talk to weathermen and women and, just do a thing. I unfortunately had a convention that day. So I was out of town. I don't even know where I was, Pennsylvania or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So you're part of an ensemble, obviously, in Twisters, a great cast, versus being the lead in Love Lies Bleeding. I would imagine there's a lot more pressure when it's all on you, when you're the star, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because I, as Danny in Twisters, am really not going to make or break the movie. People might love Danny, they might hate Danny, but it's not going to completely change their opinion of the film. When you're the lead, you're in a very vulnerable position, and you really do carry the weight of not only the film, but there is a responsibility too to make sure you have to be extra prepared. You kind of have. You have to lead by example, and the cast and crew and everybody kind of feels that energy all the way down. So if you come in with a bad attitude, it's going to be a miserable shoot for everybody. If you come in with a great attitude, which everyone on Twisters did, it's going to be a really great shoot, even if the weather or the circumstances are kind of dire at times. So yeah, it's definitely, I got to just kind of chill in the back. Say some crazy stuff every now and then, hang out with my buddy, like meet some new friends, and get to be a part of one of the coolest movies of the summer.
Very cool. You know what I thought was so cool that they did and heartwarming is that they gave Bill Paxton, who was in the original Twister, they gave his son a cameo in the film. And I thought that was just a class act.
Yeah. Nobody told me that until... after the fact. I had no idea, or I would have loved to met him. But yeah, that's super cool. And it's funny, he came in hot too. He was definitely a memorable character. You're like, wow, this guy. But yeah, I heard he was very lovely, and I love that they did that. Absolutely.
So after you finished Love Lies Bleeding, we didn't talk about this the last time you were here. You live with Crohn's disease. And a lot of people do, and you had surgery after you finished Love Lies Bleeding, and it sounds like you had pain and you were dealing with stuff. Tell me about that, and how long did it take to recover from surgery, all that stuff?
Yeah, so in 2020, I was diagnosed, and I found out that I had Crohn's because my intestines swelled shut. I had to go to the hospital, and from that, I had some scar tissue. And I do checks every year to make sure I'm good to do whatever movie. My next movie was Ant-Man, and so I did that, and I had to get in good shape and whatever. And then right before Love Lies Bleeding, which was 2022, I did another scan, which I always do. And the first day of filming, right as we were about to start, my doctor calls, and this was like 3 weeks later, by the way, which was kind of a massive delay from the 3 days she told me it would.
Yeah.
The day that we start shooting, she said, I have to leave and get surgery immediately, that my scar tissue was so bad. She has no idea why I'm not in the hospital. It's a whole thing. And I was like, I can't leave this movie. We just started. I got in shape. Like I can't do it. She tried to tell me the recovery was 4 days just to be able to like, or like the next day even. If I had like a sit at a desk job, yeah, I could have gone to work if I had to, but my outfit was bare.
Yeah.
It would not have worked out. So I'm glad I waited. I wound up getting a second opinion, talking to the surgeon. She was super nonchalant about it. She's like, yeah, I got a guy whose intestines look like yours. He's in the hospital right now, but you feel fine. And I was like, I feel amazing, actually. She's like, great. If you start feeling bad, then that's, we got to get you in. But until then, let's do it when you're done. Let's do it in a few months. And that kind of, it gave me a little relief, but then it was in the back of my mind, like at any minute I could ruin this movie. It was just always in the back of my mind. So, I talked to Steve about it. We reduced my fiber intake. We did a lot of stuff to try to make sure that everything that was going through was like as small as possible, basically.
Yeah.
And keeping up with cardio helps. It helps regulate the digestive system, and I'm getting the proper nutrition. So all of those things were really, really beneficial in the weirdness of it all. And then I was able to go right after Levelized Bleeding. I did reshoots for Ant-Man, finished that off, and then I went into surgery. They say it takes, I think, 6 weeks to recover from a planned surgery for what was it, a ileocecal resection, I think is how you say it.
Okay.
5 centimeters of my intestines were removed.
Mm.
So they say it takes about 6 weeks. I think for me, I didn't feel back to normal for several months, and even going into reshoots for Levelized Bleeding that following January, I had to get back in shape for 3 days of shooting. Didn't feel 100% for sure. I think it took a lot longer than they said, but I also think, they go off a standard of this is like a typical feeling, but if you're working out like an athlete, it's going to take a lot longer to get to where you were than if you're just, going in and lifting casually for 3 days a week and going on little walks or something like that. But for me to feel like I could go in and deadlift what I was deadlifting or squat what I was squatting, it took so much longer. So I do feel like people need to know that, because I felt some way about like, oh, I'm so slow and like whatever to heal. But I was talking to an athletic trainer, and he said, no, they just give people this like pathetic, like not pathetic, but like this average, like this is what, someone who's not working out to the level of an athlete might need to recover.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Right.
It in some ways, it sounds like a contradiction. You would think that if you were in incredible shape, that it would take less to recover from something.
Well, it's like when I'm given notes, like, so I just had the surgery, and they're like, okay, you can't lift more than 10 pounds. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like, my deadlift was almost 400 pounds. So I can lift like 10 pounds is not, I'm not going to feel it at all. So there is that's why like things like athletic trainers are so important, because they work with your doctor to say, well, this person actually is at a level of an athlete, so they can probably do a little bit more in terms of needing to get them back to where they need to be. But it really is kind of, it takes a village, I guess, to there. I didn't have that village or that knowledge until way later. So.
So we had comedian Jay Moore on the show this week, and he was in Jerry Maguire, played Bob Sugar in Jerry Maguire, and he told us that Tom Cruise is, and I believe this is a direct quote, the coolest person he's ever met. Now, you're doing Mission Impossible 8 with Tom. Can you tell us anything? Like, first, just what's Tom like?
One of those guys that makes you feel like you belong there right away. I will say he was very, very sweet. Welcomes you in. There's no doubt that he's working his ass off. Like, he's one of the hardest workers I've ever met. And genuinely cares about every single frame, every single shot of the movie. And I don't think there's like a part of the movie that he's not involved in. So, or of any of his projects. And he just loves filmmaking, loves movies, and that passion really goes through. And I love that. It's such a great energy to work with. It's a great kind of refresher, when you kind of sometimes you meet people and they're like, yeah, it's good enough, whatever.
Yeah.
That's not how he operates. So it was really cool to see that. And you get to kind of take tours and see other stuff that they did or they're working on, and it just feels like a really cool collaborative environment. And yeah, you never feel like you're, I guess, you never feel like you're a newcomer on the set. You feel like you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great.
So did you get to hang out like when you're not shooting? Do you go out to dinner? Do you go out for drinks or whatever?
No, I don't know if I'm allowed to how much of that kind of thing I should talk about, but yeah, it's great.
I'm just so curious is what even when you were doing Twisters, I'm just so curious of what your life is with everybody. When you're shooting and you're with people for such a long period of time, what you get to do with them. I mean, you obviously become good friends with them, right?
You hope. I mean, like it's hard, and these last few shoots have been the first shoots that I've gotten to do post-COVID, and sometimes everybody has their own life, their own thing, and that's totally fine, and they don't want to make friends on the set, or they don't have time to hang out very often, and that's great. With Twisters, it was like kind of the best situation that I had experienced, I think, thus far, because I think Glenn, Anthony, Daisy, just right off the bat, they set a precedent of like, we're going to go out to dinner together. We're going to hang out when we can. We have a lot of downtime because of bad weather, ironically. We have times where, the Tyler's crew the Storm Wranglers or whatever we are, we can, hang out because the other crews are filming. So, you just want to build that bond and build that chemistry, and it reads on the screen, I think. And I've certainly taken that into account when I, in other projects that I've done where, one of the leads on this silly zombie movie that I just did, with George Romero's daughter, which was really, really cool.
That is so cool. I actually worked on a George Romero movie in Pittsburgh in 1987. Nicest guy in the world. Yeah, nicest guy.
Yeah, well, his daughter's great. She's kind of in charge of his legacy, and she wanted to make a movie to honor her dad, but also that was like very much her own. So I get to be a lead on it. And a lot of that is like advocating for your fellow actors. A lot of that is making sure people that, we did it in New Jersey. I'm not from New Jersey, but it's trying to find ways to make people feel comfortable and at home. And it's really, really important. And when you don't get, we talked about being a lead versus not, when you don't get that energy right off the bat, it's like, it can be a really harrowing experience. So I definitely tried to take as much knowledge as I can from people like Glenn and Daisy and Anthony and Tom, and filter that into, my style of acting and the energy that I want to bring to set.
So I came out publicly in 2016. And despite being on ESPN, it's been nothing but love. So I'm grateful and happy about that. I'm wondering, as a queer actor, has that ever hurt you in any way, or what's that experience been like?
Probably. I mean, there's a whole audience of people that won't buy a movie, or that will make you cut anything queer out of it, or what. It's very hard to sell a gay movie just in general. Because it's only going to make so much money. It's going to alienate a lot of people, and it's not going to be allowed to go on various markets. And even, I was trying to see with Love Lies Waiting, how that was censored over different.
Oh yeah.
And I was surprised that it was released in some places too. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are things behind my back that I don't hear, that, you know, I can't really be concerned about. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it definitely has some kind of impact. I think things are getting better, but you know, just kind of, I'm not going to change. So
Yeah, no, we all do our part, right? We're all doing our
Yeah.
part. It bothers me in June when I see somebody burn a pride flag. I'm like, my God, what year is it?
And
But
like,
yeah,
had to go buy, you know, they had to go buy the flag. So you're like, okay, well, yeah,
Yeah, really.
exactly. Exactly.
you know, you just, what happens when you burn a pride flag? Like, good for you. Or when
Yeah,
people,
good for you.
when people are like buying all of that beer and then destroying it, you're like, okay, well, you've spent money on this product instead of boycotting it, and
Right.
instead of
Right,
drinking.
right. Yeah, you feel better about that?
Yeah, you've made a big statement. Good job. So yeah, it's just, and people are so reactive and emotional, and it's just really funny because it's like at the end of the day, you could very well have no idea and should have no idea what's going on in my household. Like,
Right.
it just really doesn't concern you. But you're making it your problem, and that's all on you. And that's a really weird thing to do, because I don't think about what you do at home ever, you know?
Yeah, mind your own business. Mind your own business. Yeah. So I read a story. I'm going to get you to relive something. I read a story about you on a date with a guy, and you ordered the mussels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Describe how that dinner sort of changed your life or sent it off in a different direction.
It was really like a, you know, I had mostly dated men when I was younger, and I still like it. There's this whole thing of like, it's just kind of realizing where you are. So I always thought, oh, guys are pretty. And I still think, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty man, you know? But like in dating them, I just never really got anything out of it. Like, you know, just a friendship, I guess. So dated, whatever, then started, you know, adding women into it. And I was like, oh, this actually feels a little more right. But I was like, okay, well, I'll still, you know, try both sides, see if I, you know, what I'm feeling. And then finally I remember I was out on a date with this guy, and he was very sweet. We had so much in common, and we went out to get mussels, and I was eating the mussels, and I was like, this looks like, you know, a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm so much more into this thing than I am even into this date. And so I think there's no pretending to be done here anymore.
Right. Well, if it were a kebab, maybe you would have felt a little differently.
Oh, yeah. It's really just it was one of those things where I was like, all right. And it's also funny to me. I think there was like a little bit of a rejection of like, you know, I had one of my good friends would literally all the time hit me up. We'd see each other, go off to this school or whatever, and then we'd, you know, meet up again, and they'd be like, so are you gay yet? And I'm like, what are you, silly, calm down. And then, you know, it was that, and then I'd have other friends that are like, so Katie, this is like a small intervention that my friends were having in tiny groups. It was really cute. And I think I was so resistant because I was just like such a stereotype that I was like, no, I can't be a stereotype, but I guess I am. And yeah, it was really a surprise to absolutely no one.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been great. It's been great catching up. Twisters is in theaters worldwide, wherever you're watching or listening. I predict you will be nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for Love Lies Bleeding. I will go on record with that. And Mission Impossible 8 is coming up next year. Cannot wait. Katy, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's great to see you again. And next time it'll be shirts off.
Shirts off.
Yeah. At Tighter You or something.
We will do it. We will do
A
it.
tighter you. Yeah.
Thanks, Katy.
Thanks. Take care.
There you have it, Katy O'Brian joining us. I got to tell you, the next time I am in a restaurant and I order mussels, I will think of Katy.
I will never stop thinking about this story. This is probably the funniest. That's the funniest story anybody has ever told us.
It is so funny.
It's so perfect.
And yeah, if you have not seen Love Lies Bleeding, it's streaming now. It is really good. It's her and Kristen Stewart. And I'm not kidding. I think she will be nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for that because she is terrific. So thank you to Katy. Thank you, Sue. It's always great seeing you. Thank you, everybody, for watching in. Yeah, that's a new word I've invented. It's called watching in. Thank you for watching and listening to the Culture Pop Podcast, and we'll see you next time.